One moment that's gonna change my life forever. Charlotte.
Yes.
Weight of what I've just walked into, the one moment that's going to change my life forever. Charlotte. I call out, holding the bouquet of roses in my hand, my heartbeat skipping a beat as I step further into the apartment. No response. Charlotte. I repeat, my voice a little more urgent now. That I hear it. Her voice, soft but unmistakably nervous. I'm in the kitchen. I take a deep breath and walk toward the sound of her voice, the rhythmic beat of my heart in my ears. When I enter the kitchen, my eyes lock onto her. She's standing there next to the kitchen table and there's Victor. Victor Ashford. The last person I wanted to see. The last person I ever thought I'd have to see again. What are you doing here? I force the words out, my grip tightening on the bouquet. Victor doesn't even flinch. He just gives me that cocky smile, the same one he always wears. The one that made me want to break something every time I saw it. I was just leaving, he says, his voice oozing with that smug confidence. Charlotte and I were talking. Right, Charlie? Charlotte, standing there looking uncomfortable, meets my gaze for a brief moment, then quickly looks away. James, we need to talk. I set the flowers down on the counter, the sudden feeling of dread creeping in. Something's off. I can feel it in the pit of my stomach. What about? She hesitates, looking between me and Victor. It's not easy to say this. I step closer, my frustration growing. What the hell is going on, Charlotte? Why is he here? Victor leans back against the counter, his arms crossed. James, he starts, his voice annoyingly calm. I think you should sit down. This isn't going to be easy to hear. I can feel the anger bubbling up inside me, threatening to spill over. I'm not sitting down until I know why you're here, I snap. Charlotte finally speaks, her voice barely above a whisper. James, I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I blink, trying to process what she's just said. What? I'm pregnant, she repeats, the tears welling up in her eyes. But it's not yours, James. Victor's smug grin widens, and I suddenly realize why he's been standing there, looking so damn pleased with himself. You've got to be kidding me, I breathe out, my whole body trembling now. You're pregnant? By him? Charlotte nods, her eyes pleading with me. I didn't want it to happen this way, James. I never planned for this. I feel like the room is spinning, the walls closing in on me. Victor, her ex, he's the father of her child. Not me. The truth crashes over me like a wave, knocking the air from my lungs. I thought we were happy, Charlotte, I managed to say, my voice shaky with disbelief. I thought you were the one. She starts, but the words seem to fail her. She wipes her eyes, a sob escaping her lips. I didn't mean for this to happen. Victor cuts in as if he's been waiting for this moment. It's all in the past now. We're together, Charlotte and I. You can move on, mate. Just take the money and leave. You're better off. I turn my gaze to him, my fists clenching at my sides. Money? I whisper, the shock turning to a simmering rage. You think I'll just walk away because you offer me money? Victor's grin doesn't falter. 5 million to be exact. You take the money, sign the papers, and you walk away. No strings attached. You can go off and live your life while Charlotte and we get to raise our family. I feel a surge of anger rise in my chest, but I can't let it out, not yet. My jaw clenches and I can feel the heat in my face. 5 million? Is that all I'm worth to you, Charlotte? You sell me out for money for him? She looks broken now, her face pale. I never wanted it like this. I never thought you'd find out. Victor steps closer, his voice low and almost threatening. You don't have to find out, James. You take the money, sign the papers, and leave. It's simple. You disappear. Let us be. My eyes flicker to Charlotte, then back to Victor. I can't believe this. I trusted her. I loved her. And now she's asking me to just walk away like I never existed? But I'm not a fool. Not anymore. I take the envelope from the counter and stare at it for a long moment, the weight of it sinking in. 5 million. To leave. To let them have everything they wanted, together. To erase myself from their lives, to disappear. 5 million, I say, my voice cold. That's all you think I'm worth? Just like that. Victor shrugs. It's a fair deal. Think of it as a way to move on. For both of you. I feel my stomach churn as I glance at Charlotte, but I don't see the woman I loved anymore. I see a stranger, a traitor. The realization stings more than I ever thought it would. I'm not doing this, I mutter, shaking my head. I'm not walking away just for your fucking money. Victor laughs softly, almost pityingly. You don't have a choice, mate. And that's when it hits me. I don't have a choice anymore, but not in the way he thinks. I'm going to leave, but not for their convenience. Not for their fucking money. I'm going to walk away, but I'll leave them with nothing. I take the envelope, rip it open, and in front of both of them I start to sign. But not for their offer. For what's coming next. I stood there, the envelope still in my hands, staring at the papers Victor had slid across the table. The offer was simple, too simple really. $5 million to walk away, to disappear from Charlotte's life and never come back. They had set it up like it was a kindness, like they were doing me a favor. But the words still felt like a punch. I wasn't a fool no matter how much they thought I was. I could hear Victor's smug voice cutting through the tension, even as I stayed silent. You're not really going to make this harder than it is, are you? He asked, leaning back in the chair, his arms crossed, watching me like he was expecting me to just sign and walk away. It's simple. Take the money. Leave. Forget Charlotte, forget everything. You've got a life ahead of you. This is your chance to start over. Charlotte stood off to the side, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. But there was something else in her eyes now, guilt, maybe. Or maybe it was just the regret of knowing what she'd thrown away. But no matter how much I wanted to believe she felt sorry, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was all just part of their plan. They thought they'd won. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to let them. I couldn't stop looking at the envelope. $5 million. The sum alone would change everything. I could disappear, start fresh. No more of this heartache. No more of her lies. I could be free. But then my eyes flicked to Charlotte. She wasn't looking at me now, instead staring down at her shoes, avoiding my gaze. Her silence spoke volumes, and it hit me harder than anything she'd said. Victor's voice broke through again, as if sensing my hesitation. Come on, mate. You think it's going to be easy? You've seen her. She's already made her choice. You're just standing in the way of the life she wants. Hell, you're standing in the way of your own future if you keep holding on to this dead weight. I bit my tongue, trying to suppress the fury that rose in me. I wanted to lash out, to tell him to shut the hell up. But what would that do? Nothing. I turned away from them both, looking out the window of the office. The city of Manchester stretched out before me, but it felt like a world I no longer belonged to. Everything about my life here was a lie now. Victor's words echoed in my head. You don't have to fight. Just let go. Let go. That's when I realized what they really wanted. It wasn't just to get rid of me, it was to make me feel small. To make me feel like I didn't matter. $5 million wasn't a gift, it was a bribe. A bribe to erase myself, to make my love for Charlotte seem like nothing more than a silly mistake. $5 million, I said, my voice low, cold. I felt the weight of the money in my hands, the reality of the decision settling in. And you think this will fix everything? Victor's smirk didn't waver. It's the easiest choice you'll ever make, James. The money's yours. All you have to do is walk away. I looked back at Charlotte. Her face was full of pain, but it didn't feel like the pain I had expected. She wasn't broken from losing me. She was broken from the guilt of getting caught. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done to me. She was sorry for what she had to face now that I knew the truth. I took a deep breath and turned back to Victor. I'll take it. The words felt like lead in my mouth, heavy and bitter. But I had no other choice, did I? What was left for me here? What was left for me with her? Victor slid the papers toward me, along with a pen. It's that simple. I stared down at the contract. It wasn't just money. It was my life, my dignity, my pride, all being sold for $5 million. But I had nothing left to lose. I had already lost Charlotte. I had already lost the life I thought I had. I wasn't just walking away from her. I was walking away from everything I'd ever known. I signed the papers. Each stroke of the pen felt like a nail in the coffin of everything I had believed in. And then, something inside me shifted. Victor and Charlotte exchanged a glance, satisfaction in their eyes. They thought they had won. They thought I was gone. But I wasn't gone. Not yet. I stood up, the signed papers in my hands, and I looked at them both. I'm done. But you're not getting away with this. Charlotte blinked, confusion crossing her face. What do you mean? I met her eyes for a moment, my resolve hardening. You'll see. I'm taking my money, but I'm also taking something else. You don't get to walk away from me that easily. Victor stood up too, his smile still in place. You'll regret this, James? But I didn't feel regret. Not yet. No, I won't. But you will. As I left the office, the cool air of Manchester hit my face, and for the first time in weeks I felt a flicker of something like freedom. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I had my plan. And they were about to feel the consequences of their actions. I couldn't get Charlotte's face out of my head. Her tears, her words, they all blended together into this sickening cocktail of guilt and regret. But I couldn't care. I wasn't in love with her anymore. I was done. I had to be. I had the money. 5 million sitting in my bank account. The price of my silence. The price of walking away from everything I thought I knew. But I wasn't just going to disappear. No. I wasn't going to let Charlotte and Victor get away with what they'd done. The plan started forming almost immediately. There was no turning back now. I met with Maximilian, the private investigator I'd hired to dig into Charlotte and Victor's finances. Maximilian was a sharp guy, too sharp, really. He had a way of making people talk, and I had a feeling he'd uncover what I needed. I sat down across from him in a small, dimly lit office in Liverpool. The smell of stale coffee hung in the air, but I wasn't here for pleasantries. I needed answers. So, Maximilian, I said, leaning forward, my voice low, what have you got for me? Maximilian looked up from the stack of papers in front of him, his eyes calculating. I've been going through their records. It's messy, James. Very messy. He paused, pushing a folder toward me. But there's something here that could destroy them. I flipped open the folder, my heart racing as I scanned through the documents. Hidden transactions, money flowing between offshore accounts, questionable deals. It was all there. My stomach tightened as I read the details. Charlotte and Victor had been laundering money, funneling it into private accounts, and making shady investments under the company's name. This is it, I muttered to myself. This is everything. Maximilian nodded. It gets worse. There's also evidence of embezzlement and insider trading. They've been using the company's resources for personal gain. If this goes public, they're done. Finished. I looked up at him, my mind already racing. How do we make this stick? You've got to be careful, he warned. You can't just release this information without proof, and you'll need to tie it directly to them. I leaned back in my chair, a plan forming in my mind. I'll make sure they get what's coming to them, I said, my voice cold. I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. They thought they had control over everything. They thought they could buy me off with money and silence. But now I had the upper hand. I could bring their whole world crashing down. And I would. I spent the next few days working with Maximilian, going over every transaction, every hidden detail. The deeper we dug, the darker it got. The more I found, the more I realized that this wasn't just about revenge, it was about exposing them for the frauds they were. But even as the anger bubbled inside me, there was a part of me that couldn't let go. A part of me that still remembered the woman I loved. The woman who had betrayed me. Every time I thought I was over her, something would remind me of the way she used to smile, the way she'd looked at me with love. It was hard to let that go. But I had to. There was no other choice. I could almost hear Victor's voice in my head now. You don't have a choice, James. The bastard had been so sure of himself, so smug. Well, now it was my turn. Maximilian, I said, turning to him after a long silence. I need you to start preparing the documents. We're going public with this. I'll make sure the press gets the full story. I want Charlotte and Victor's names dragged through the mud. They deserve it. Maximilian looked at me, his face serious. You sure about this? Once it's out there, there's no going back. I took a deep breath, fighting the emotions that surged up in me. It's not about going back. It's about making sure they never get to hurt anyone again. Maximilian gave me a nod, and I could see the understanding in his eyes. All right. I'll start the process. But remember, we need to be careful. One wrong move and this whole thing could backfire. I know, I said, my voice tight. But I'm done playing it safe. I'm going to make them pay. The following days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and planning. Maximilian gathered more evidence, piecing everything together. I could feel the weight of it all, the anger, the betrayal, and the need for justice. It was driving me. I could almost taste the moment when I'd expose them for what they really were. I wasn't going to stop until they lost everything. Their company, their reputation, their wealth, everything they built on lies and deceit. But as I watched the sun set over Liverpool from the window of Maximilian's office, I felt a chill run through me. Was this the right thing to do? Was revenge really worth it? Every part of me said yes, but there was a part of me that still didn't feel whole. I shook the thought from my mind. It didn't matter. They destroyed me. Now it was my turn to return the favor. As the plan began to take shape, I realized something. I wasn't just after revenge anymore. I wasn't just trying to tear them down. I was fighting for something else. For my pride. For my life. For everything I had lost. And nothing was going to stand in my way. I stared out of the train window, the rolling hills of the countryside blurring as we sped toward Brighton. It felt surreal, leaving Manchester behind, leaving Charlotte and Victor behind. But it wasn't just them I was leaving, it was the version of myself that had clung to a relationship built on lies. I couldn't remember the last time I felt truly free. I arrived in Brighton late in the afternoon, the sea breeze immediately hitting my face as I stepped off the train. The air smelled different here, fresher, cleaner. It was as if the city was trying to offer me something new, something I couldn't even describe. I didn't have much, just the clothes on my back and a small suitcase. But I didn't care. What I had left I could rebuild. James? I heard a voice call out, snapping me from my thoughts. I turned to see Lily, my younger sister, waving excitedly as she made her way toward me. She had a smile on her face, the kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. It felt like a lifetime since I'd seen her. Lily, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, a small smile tugging at the corner of my lips. She rushed forward and wrapped her arms around me. It's so good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. I needed to be, I admitted, holding her tight. We pulled back and she studied my face with concern. You look exhausted. You okay? I shrugged, trying to hide the weight of the past few months. I will be. It's just a lot to take in, you know? I get it, Lily said softly. But you're here now. Let's focus on getting you settled. Come on, I've got a flat near the seafront. It's small but it's cozy. You'll be all right. I followed her to the flat, the sound of the waves crashing in the distance offering a kind of peace I hadn't known in a long time. As we walked through the streets of Brighton, I started to feel the tension in my shoulders loosen. Lily's flat was modest but comfortable. The moment I stepped inside I felt a little lighter. Maybe it was the change of scenery, maybe it was just the fact that I wasn't surrounded by memories of betrayal. I could breathe here. Lily made dinner that night. Nothing fancy, but the warmth of the food and the calm conversation made me realize how much I had missed this. Her laughter, her presence, was a stark contrast to the heaviness I'd left behind. You've been through a lot, Lily said between bites. But I know you'll get through this. You're stronger than you think. Maybe, I muttered, pushing my food around on the plate. But right now I don't feel that strong. Then let me help you, she said, her voice gentle. You don't have to do this alone. We'll figure it out together. I met her gaze and saw the sincerity in her eyes. For the first time in months I felt like someone cared about me, really cared. Not out of obligation but because she loved me. After dinner, I wandered out onto the balcony, the salty air filling my lungs. The sky was painted with streaks of orange and pink, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore was oddly soothing. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, letting the moment wash over me. I didn't know how long I'd been standing there when I heard a voice behind me. You're new to town, aren't you? I turned to see a woman standing just inside the door, watching me with a friendly smile. She had dark hair, a warm expression, and a presence that seemed calming. I couldn't help but notice the way the light from the setting sun reflected in her eyes. Something about her just felt right. Yeah, just moved in, I said, trying to seem casual. Looking for a fresh start. I'm Holly, she said, stepping outside. I live in the flat next door. I saw you earlier and I thought I'd introduce myself. James? I replied, offering a half smile. Nice to meet you. Everything okay? She asked, her eyes soft with concern. I hesitated, unsure of how to explain everything that had happened. Yeah, just a lot on my mind. But I'll get through it. Holly nodded, her expression understanding. I get it. Life can be overwhelming. But you're in the right place. Brighton's got a way of helping people heal. Take it slow. You'll find your way. Something about her words resonated with me, like she understood exactly what I was going through. It was strange, but for the first time in a while I felt a sense of calm. We talked for a while and I found myself actually enjoying the conversation. Holly had this way of making everything seem easier, lighter. By the time we finished chatting I felt a little bit more like myself. As she said goodbye and headed back to her flat, I stayed outside for a while longer. The weight of everything I'd gone through didn't vanish, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like there was hope again. Maybe I could rebuild. Maybe moving forward didn't mean forgetting. Maybe it just meant learning to live again. The next day, I woke up to the sound of seagulls outside the window and a fresh sense of clarity. I wasn't the same person I was when I left Manchester, but maybe that was a good thing. I had to stop thinking about revenge. I had to stop thinking about what they did to me. It was time to focus on healing. It was time to focus on me. It was hard not to smile. I'd set the wheels in motion, and now, all I had to do was sit back and watch as everything Charlotte and Victor built came crumbling down. I stood on the edge of Liverpool's waterfront, the cold breeze whipping at my face, watching the boats sway gently in the water. My mind was far from the peaceful view, though. It was fixated on what was happening behind the scenes. The money from Charlotte's company account, that was just the beginning. The leak to the press had already made waves. I hadn't expected the impact to be this quick, but I wasn't complaining. The headline screamed in bold letters: corruption, fraud, and betrayal. CO Charlotte Williams under fire. I felt a small surge of satisfaction. But then, something else started eating away at me. Despite the satisfaction of seeing Charlotte and Victor start to unravel, there was still a part of me that wished things were different. That I didn't have to destroy everything to feel vindicated. James, I heard Lily's voice break through my thoughts. You're brooding again. I turned to see her walking up behind me, a concerned look on her face. She always knew how to pull me out of my head, but this time I wasn't sure if I wanted to be pulled out. It's nothing, I muttered, pushing my hands deeper into my pockets. Just thinking. About what? She asked, stepping closer and giving me a knowing look. About Charlotte? Yeah, I said, keeping my gaze fixed on the water. I can't help but wonder if I did the right thing, you know? I wanted justice, but now, it just feels empty. Lily didn't speak for a moment, and I could tell she was considering her words carefully. James, you've been through hell. I don't blame you for wanting to see them pay. But don't lose yourself in it. Revenge won't bring back what you lost. She was right, but the words didn't seem to reach me. It was like I was numb to it all now. I thought seeing them fall would feel like victory, but it just felt like watching the world burn from a distance. Look, Lily continued, placing a hand on my shoulder. I'm here for you, but you need to make sure you're okay too. You're not some villain in this story. You're not the one who did the wrong thing. I didn't respond right away. My thoughts were a tangled mess of emotions. Part of me was still caught up in what Charlotte and Victor had taken from me. The other part wanted peace, wanted to move on. But every time I thought about moving on, the cold reality of what they'd done to me resurfaced. Thanks, I muttered, brushing a hand through my hair. I'll figure it out. I heard my phone buzz in my pocket and I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. It was a news alert. The scandal had hit a new level. The article detailed more about Victor's involvement with offshore accounts and money laundering, connecting him to even more illicit deals than I had originally suspected. I gripped the phone tighter, fighting back a wave of anger. I wasn't the only one who'd been hurt by Victor's greed. But seeing him sink further into the mess he'd created, watching Charlotte's empire crumble, there was something undeniably satisfying about it. Victor's in deep, I said aloud, more to myself than Lily. Lily didn't respond, but I could tell she was watching me carefully, gauging my mood. Is this really what you want, James? To see them completely destroyed? I didn't have an answer at first. All I knew was that seeing their downfall was like a poison in my veins, making me feel alive and empty all at once. I don't know, I finally admitted, my voice low. It feels right, but it doesn't fill the hole. Lily's eyes softened and she stepped closer. Because nothing will, James. You can't find peace in someone else's failure. You have to find it within yourself. I looked down at the phone in my hand, the screen flashing with more updates on the scandal. Charlotte's life, everything she built, was crashing down, and all I could do was watch. At that moment, my phone buzzed again, this time a text from Maximilian. I opened it and my eyes scanned the words quickly. Victor's pulling strings to cover up his tracks, I read aloud. He's already trying to silence people. The walls are closing in on him. I felt a strange twist of satisfaction at the thought of Victor's panic, but it wasn't the rush I expected. It felt hollow. Looks like it's only a matter of time now, I said, slipping the phone back into my pocket. But I don't know if I care anymore. Lily was quiet for a moment before she spoke again. You've already won, James. They're falling apart. You don't need to watch it burn to know that you've won. You're free now. You've got the chance to rebuild your life. I didn't say anything in response. Part of me wanted to argue, to say that I needed to see it through, that the revenge wasn't enough. But Lily was right. I had to start thinking about myself. I wasn't just going to get closure from their destruction. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. You're right, I said finally, my voice more certain this time. I have to start focusing on me. I can't keep holding on to this. For the first time since everything started, I felt a shift within me. It wasn't victory exactly, but it was the beginning of peace. Maybe revenge had been satisfying, but it wasn't everything. Maybe I could still find a way forward, without them. The downfall had begun. But for me, the real journey had just started. I didn't expect it. Not like this. The phone buzzed on the table in front of me. The name on the screen made my chest tighten. Charlotte. I stared at it for a few seconds, my mind a tangled mess. After everything, why now? Why did she think I could just forget? I swiped the screen and answered. James, her voice came through, soft but broken. I need to talk to you. About what? I said, my tone colder than I intended. But what did she expect? Sympathy? Please just hear me out, she continued, her voice cracking with emotion. I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to listen. I've been a mess, James. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I leaned back in my chair, fingers tightening around the phone. Sorry? That's it? You've got a lot of nerve. I know I do, she said quickly. I don't expect forgiveness. I wanted to tell you that I regret everything. I never wanted to hurt you. I made so many mistakes and I see that now. I see what I lost. I felt the weight of her words, but it didn't affect me the way it once would have. I used to think I needed her apology, but now, it was just another voice in the sea of noise that had been my life for months. You're sorry? I repeated, almost laughing. You think I care about that now? James, she pleaded. I was wrong. I didn't realize how much I hurt you until everything started falling apart. Please, Stop. I cut her off, a knot of frustration rising in my chest. You don't get to do this now. Not after everything. You think I'm just going to open my arms and welcome you back? After you betrayed me? After you sold me out for him? I could hear her breathing, shallow and ragged. She was trying, but it felt like she was just talking to fill the silence. I'd heard her say these words before, but they meant nothing now. I don't expect that, James. I don't deserve that. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I know I'll never fix what I did, but You can't fix it, Charlotte, I said, my voice steady but sharp. There's nothing left to fix. She fell silent, and I could almost picture her sitting there, hands trembling, realizing that the man she once knew wasn't there anymore. I wasn't the man who'd spend sleepless nights thinking about her, begging for her forgiveness. I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't even sure if I was angry anymore. I had been at first, but now, it was something else. It was emptiness, and it was filling up every corner of my heart. I don't want your apology, Charlotte, I said, my voice softer but no less firm. I don't need it. I'm not that guy anymore. I know, she whispered. I know I've lost you. I needed you to hear me. I stared at the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on me. But it didn't change anything. I couldn't go back. Not to her, not to the life we had. There was a long silence between us. I could feel the space growing, the distance that had formed between us, even when we were together. Goodbye, Charlotte, I finally said, my voice flat. I hope you figure it out. But don't expect me to come back. Not this time. I won't, she replied, her voice a ghost of its former self. I'm so sorry, James. I'm so sorry. I hung up the phone, the finality of it echoing in my mind. I wasn't angry anymore, but I was numb. I couldn't even bring myself to feel sorry for her. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the phone as if hoping some answer would magically appear. But nothing did. She was gone and I was gone too. What she didn't understand was that I didn't need her anymore. Not in the way I used to. A part of me used to think that if she came back, I'd take her in my arms and forgive her. I'd let the anger fade and give her another chance. But I wasn't that man. Not anymore. I'd rebuilt my life, brick by brick, and I wasn't going to tear it all down for her. I thought about the time I spent with Lily, the time I spent with Holly, how much I'd started to change. I'd spent too long thinking I needed her to heal, but I didn't. I needed to move on. The world was still out there, waiting for me to take it. I wasn't going to keep looking back. And as I stared out the window, watching the busy streets of Manchester fade into the background, I realized that the only thing I needed to forgive was myself. For letting her in. For letting myself believe in the lie she'd told me. Charlotte was lost to me now. And I couldn't waste another minute trying to bring her back. I stood on the edge of the balcony, overlooking the streets of Brighton, the cool evening breeze brushing against my skin. The sky above was fading into darkness, and the lights from the city below twinkled like distant stars. It was quiet, peaceful even, but inside, a storm raged. I had just seen the news, Victor's criminal activities exposed to the public. The money laundering, the fraud, everything. Charlotte's company was a shell of what it once was, falling apart at the seams. My plan had worked. It had worked perfectly. But as I stared at the city below, I couldn't help but wonder if I should feel more than this empty satisfaction. Was this all there was to it? Watching them destroy themselves piece by piece? I leaned against the railing, my thoughts heavy, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Maximilian. The full story's out. It's all over the news now. Victor's going down. Charlotte struggling to save face. I stared at the message, letting it sink in. This was it. The end of the road. There was nothing more I could do to them. I had already won. But why did it feel so hollow? I turned as I heard footsteps behind me. Holly appeared in the doorway, her face soft with concern. She always seemed to know when something was bothering me. "James?" she asked, her voice gentle. "You okay?" I shrugged, forcing a smile. "Yeah. Just thinking." She stepped closer, her gaze understanding. "About them?" I nodded, the weight of her question pressing down on me. "About everything." She didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there, letting the silence fill the space between us. Finally she spoke again, her voice calm but firm. "You've done what you needed to do. You fought for what was yours. And now, you get to move forward." I didn't respond right away. Her words hung in the air, but something about them felt like they were coming from someone who had seen this kind of thing before. Someone who understood what it meant to let go. "I thought it would feel different," I said finally, my voice low. "I thought seeing them fall would fix everything. But it doesn't. I got what I wanted, but now, I don't know what to do with it." Holly stepped forward, her hand resting on my arm. Her touch was warm, grounding. "Maybe that's the point," she said softly. "Maybe it was never about them. Maybe it was about you finding peace, about you realizing that you deserve better than the chaos they brought into your life." I looked at her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt something other than anger or bitterness. A sense of calm. "You're right," I said, finally allowing myself to believe it. "I've been so focused on revenge I forgot what it was like to just live." She smiled, her eyes softening. "You don't need them to define who you are. You're not the man you were when this started. You're stronger, James." I didn't think I could ever feel that way again, I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. "But I do. I don't know what comes next, but I'm ready to find out." Holly's smile widened and she stepped closer, her hand resting on my chest. "You don't have to do it alone, you know. I'm here." I looked down at her, the weight of everything lifting as I realized how far I had come. I had been so consumed with the idea of justice, of revenge, that I hadn't even noticed the life I was leaving behind. But standing here with Holly, feeling her warmth, I knew that what mattered now was my future, not the ghosts of my past. "I'm done with all of this," I said, my voice steady. "I don't need them anymore. Not Charlotte, not Victor. Not their lies or their betrayal. I've got enough to move forward now. And it's time to do just that." Holly nodded, her expression full of quiet pride. "Then let's move forward together." I smiled, the first genuine smile I had felt in months. "Together," I repeated, the words sounding right. I wasn't sure where the road would lead, but as I stood there with Holly, looking out over the city of Brighton, I realized something. Justice had been served, yes. But it wasn't just about them. It was about me, about reclaiming who I was, about finding peace in the wreckage they'd left behind. And that, I realized, was the true victory. I sat by the window in my apartment in Brighton, watching the city below. It was a typical evening, calm, with a faint glow from the streetlights casting shadows on the streets. I'd spent the last few months rebuilding my life and now everything felt different. Lighter somehow. I pulled up the news on my phone, the familiar weight of it still in my hands. It didn't surprise me anymore. Victor and Charlotte had officially lost everything. The headline in front of me confirmed it. Victor Ashford and Charlotte Williams face criminal charges as their company collapses. I felt nothing. "James?" I heard a soft voice from the doorway. I turned to see Holly standing there, her expression both concerned and curious. "Are you all right?" I nodded, glancing back at the article on my phone. "Yeah, I guess it's just strange. Seeing everything they worked for come crashing down like this." Holly walked over to me and sat down beside me, her hand resting gently on mine. "You got your justice. But I can see you're not finding satisfaction in it anymore." I sighed, leaning back in the chair. "I don't think I ever expected to. I thought it would feel different. But it doesn't. It's like watching something burn down and realizing you've already left the building. There's no thrill in it, only this emptiness." She squeezed my hand, her voice soft but understanding. "It's because it was never really about them, was it? It was about you healing. You've been through so much, James. It's okay to let go now." I looked down at our hands, feeling the weight of her words. She was right. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about me finding a way to move forward, away from the pain they caused. I felt my phone buzz again. Another update. This time it was about Charlotte's fall from grace. The company was bankrupt, her personal finances were exposed, and she was facing charges of embezzlement. The world they built was nothing more than a house of cards, and it had collapsed under its own weight. The satisfaction I thought I'd feel just wasn't there. I thought I'd be able to relish in their downfall, but now it just felt like I was watching a tragedy unfold, and I wasn't even sure if I was a spectator or a part of it. "Are you going to do anything?" Holly asked, her eyes searching mine. "Like what?" I replied, unsure of what she meant. "What else could I do?" She tilted her head slightly, her gaze unwavering. "They hurt you, James. Do you think you'll ever feel at peace if you just let them go without confronting them one last time? To make sure they understand what they did to you?" I swallowed hard. The thought of confronting them now felt pointless. Everything had already happened. Nothing could change what they did. But Holly had a point. Maybe I wasn't ready to fully let go until I faced them, until they understood how much they'd destroyed. "Maybe you're right," I said softly. "But I'm not sure it matters anymore. I'm not the same person I was when this all started. I've changed, Holly." "Exactly," she said with a small smile. "You're not that person anymore. But that doesn't mean you should just forget. It's about finding closure not just for them but for you too." I stared at the phone in my hands, the updates on Victor and Charlotte's downfall scrolling in front of me. But as I thought about it, something inside me shifted. I had moved on in my own way. Maybe I didn't need to confront them directly. Maybe just knowing that they'd lost it all was enough for me. "I'm done," I said, putting the phone down on the table. "They've lost everything. I've won in my own way, but I don't need anything more from them. The truth is, it was never about revenge." Holly's smile grew and she moved closer, resting her head on my shoulder. "You've already won, James. You found your peace. That's what matters." I let her words settle, feeling them like a weight lifting from my shoulders. It was something I hadn't thought possible, not after everything. But here I was, standing on the other side of it all, healed, stronger, and free. The life I had rebuilt wasn't just about moving on from the past. It was about embracing what came next. Victor and Charlotte could rot in their consequences. As for me, I was done with the past. I had Holly. I had my future. I had a life I was starting to be proud of again. And I wasn't going to let their downfall define me anymore. I looked down at Holly, her eyes closed as she leaned into me. She had been there for me through it all. She had helped me realize that while revenge had served its purpose, it was the love and support I found in the people who mattered that would truly heal me. "It's time for a new chapter," I said, more to myself than to her. Holly nodded, her fingers tracing lightly over my hand. "And this one's going to be better. I promise." I looked out the window again, watching the city lights sparkle beneath the dark sky. The chapter I'd been stuck in for so long was finally over, and I was ready to turn the page. Not with bitterness or regret, but with peace. For the first time in a long time, I was ready to move forward. And this time I wasn't looking back.